Alright, here's another. This is just going to be a quick video to answer some questions I've had regarding the oil pan that I went with and some of the things with that. So I figured I'd do that before I'm in the middle of reinstalling for the second time the front diff, after figuring out what was wrong with my side-to-side movement. I'll be going over that in another video. But before I installed that, I figured I'd kind of show the oil pan a little bit. So this is the oil pan I went with. It says it's a Moroso, but it actually came from a hot rod shop. I don't know the part number offhand, but give me about a week and I'll get the video together for my pricing, and I will go over exactly where I bought this from. I'll try to get that in the next week or two, but I have everything together to do that. But basically, all I got was the oil pan. It was pretty expensive, but it was bolt-in. So I'll go over this in my pricing video, but there's a Holley pan that you can buy, but it will need to be cut and welded to get it to clear the front diff. So I didn't really want to go with that because I can't really weld aluminum. I don't have anything to do that. And I wasn't really sure what that would cost me because I was having so many problems finding a welder. So I ended up finding this bolt-in solution. I've covered it in other videos, but the only bad thing about this oil pan is it does not allow you to run the level sensor. So I have jumpered that, and I just kind of have it wired up. I covered that in a video, but there will be no level sensor, so it will always read that it has full oil. So it'll be like the olden days where you got to make sure you check your oil. It also has a known quantity, so when you install this, you will have 5 quarts that will read on the stock dipstick. That's what this pan is designed to hold. If you do the weld thing, you'll have to try to figure out how many quarts of oil you are left with. This was a known, so I figured it would be a lot easier. And it has been pretty easy as far as getting it in. The only bad thing was, because of the front diff, I did have to run the remote oil cooler. This did not come with the oil pan. I did have to buy everything separate. So the finned part is a oil filter. This thing right here is an oil filter to AN adapter for a remote setup. I believe that came from, the company's called like FlexCool. I bought that on Amazon. I found a bunch of reviews and it got pretty good reviews, but I'll go into that with my pricing video of exactly where I got that and the part number. And then I had to run, so the reason why I went with this one is I had to have downward facing AN fittings. If you go angled like a 90 or a bypass, I think they call this a bypass, it would have to come out the side and it would end up hitting the front diff. So you have to get one that goes down. And I did have to tighten this to get the lines basically in this exact configuration. If you end up with that one that's offset over on this side, it'll hit the front diff as well. I did clearance a little bit. You can see where I did a little bit of shaving just to give it a little bit more clearance, but there's still plenty of clearance. I'll show that in a future video, but there's quite a bit of clearance between this and the front diff. I just wanted to give it a little bit more just in case there was a little bit of engine movement. And then I did so this is a Canton Racing AN line. So that goes from, I forget what this is. I think it's NPF I think this is NPF. So I did an NPF to AN adapter coming out. That's from Canton Racing. This is a just an AN extension. It's just a regular coupler, AN female to AN male. I can't remember who made these. I'll have to look into that. That's on my list though. And then I just did my AN line here that I built. So I bought all my AN lines from Hot Rod Fuel Hose. They had all of my AN lines are PTFE. You could do something cheaper. I just wanted to keep it all consistent, and they have really good pricing, and you can color code everything. So all my oil is blue, my transmission is red, and then my fuel is gold. So it was nice to kind of keep everything with one company. So I bought everything with one company. The PTFE will allow, if I do in the future want to do a flex fuel sensor with an e-reader, I can probably run some type of ethanol blend with some E85. I haven't really done much research on that, but if you want to do that, you pretty much should run PTFE lines. So I just did that just in case I did do a future kind of upgrade. But anyways, so I did my AN lines, a couple fittings. I did buy some hydraulic hose protector because it does touch the oil pan, even though this all should move together. Just in case I did run these hydraulic lines, because it will kind of touch the front diff right there. And then it comes up. There's my straight AN fittings. And then once again, I have some Canton Racing NPF adapters where it goes into my oil filter relocation. So all of this was bought separate. So this is Canton Racing. This is just kind of a temporary filter. This is not the filter that I'll be running. I'll be running the actual truck filter, which actually will be a little bit bigger. This is actually the filter if you were to if you were able to run the filter on the oil pan where the adapter is, this is the filter they recommend for that because it's a little bit shorter. And I think this a standard truck one would be it would actually be lower than the pan. So I ended up buying that at first, and then once I found out I couldn't run it, I can run the truck filter here and still clear. This will all be protected by the skid plate. And then it's also not the lowest point on the radiator. Even with the truck filter on there, it will not be lower than the radiator. But that's pretty much how I ran it. I did delete the oil cooler. So the oil cooler in the, I think I have this upside down. So the oil cooler in the Colorado is in the bottom of the radiator on the gas engine. If you have the diesel, this is actually the transmission cooler. The oil cooler, I believe, is in the AC condenser on the diesel. But for the gas, this was the oil cooler. I did buy a new radiator, but I had issues with it when I was trying to make adapters to do this to AN, because my original intent was to utilize this, but I ended up not being able to get the oil cooler to seal, and it would end up mixing the coolant and the oil. So I decided just to put the stock one back in that I had in the truck originally. But as you know, I got the mud and the oil, and so there's likely mud in this cooler. And so rather than try to clean it out and all that, I figured, you know what, just delete it, not run it. And with the oil filter here, it's getting airflow to keep the oil cool here. And also with the finned cooler there, according to their reviews and everything, it does help with oil temps. So I figured that should be good enough. I change my oil once every 5,000 miles, so I don't really see that being a problem, but I will be checking it, obviously, as I start driving this thing and getting it ready. My other question I got was concerning my manifolds. So I went with Hooker Black Hearts. They make a set for LT swaps. They make different ones. They make plain, black coated, and I think silver coated. The problem with COVID right now is that that's actually Holly owns Hooker. A lot of Holly stuff is like severely back ordered right now, and I could only find just the plain cast, which means they would rust like pretty much instantly, just like any other standard cast manifold. So what I did was I bought some high temp exhaust coating and painted them. I did orange. I figured it might look somewhat cool and match the truck. It sort of looks like rust, but that's what I went with. But you can get the different coated ones. The one thing I've noticed with these is they tuck really tight to the block. So as you can see, my exhaust pretty much has to turn almost instantly to clear the front diff and the drive shaft. The factory truck manifold was getting too close to the frame. Looking back on it, I think, and I'm not entirely sure, I know the LS swap headers that Hooker makes, which won't fit on the LT. The ones that they make actually have V-band. Looking back on it, I would probably try to get those for the LT. I don't know if they make them or not, but I probably would have searched a little bit more. Just because of that bend, it's very, very hard to attach that flange. The bolt at the top is just, there's barely any room to kind of even get it in. And that angle has to be perfect to be able to even install that bolt. I'm still working and finalizing the exhaust. There's a couple little things that got tweaked when it got burned in. But hopefully I'll have that done in the next week or two. This is kind of my last thing right now, is installing this so I can put the front suspension back on. I'm hoping to get that done this weekend and have a video out kind of showing the front done. But yeah, I think that's it. The other issue is, I don't know if you could see up in there, but that's the exhaust. It's very, very close to the starter. I did buy the Holley starter heat shield, but mind you, I bought that in December and it's March, almost April now, and I still haven't gotten it. That's been kind of back ordered, and every time I check it, it's pretty much gets pushed back. So I don't even know if they're going to make it again. But anyways, I do have the wires. I mean, the wires come wrapped with heat protection for the starter, which you can kind of see the silver there. And I wrapped the starter power wire, which, you know, I had to buy and run. I did have to reposition that a couple times just to make sure, because it was touching the flange at first. But I think I have it cleared now. I have to just kind of double check that before I kind of finalize everything. I still need to pull that exhaust off. You can see there's a little bit of gap there, and I've got to do some tweaking of that pipe to get it to kind of clear some stuff. But yeah, I think that pretty much answers the few questions that I've got. If there's anything else, just let me know. And then hopefully this week, during the week, I'll try to work on that video with the pricing and the actual cost. I have that all done. It's just a matter of me sitting down and actually getting the video done. So I will try to get that in the next week or two, and then that will give pretty much every part number that I used and where I sourced it from. All right, if anybody's got any more questions, just let me know, and I'll see you guys on the next one.